Hey, what's going on, guys? Techtoberfest continues here on JayzTwoCents. That's me on this channel. Anyway, so I'm gonna make a video today about choosing water cooling parts. As you guys may have seen in previous videos, that I have in the middle of reviving the SM-A8 build, which will be replacing my 925 build at home. I just am tired of looking at it torn apart in pieces in the background, and so I've repainted the interior and just completely deep cleaned the exterior, took it completely apart. And now I'm gonna take you guys along for a ride on how I choose my water cooling parts. I get asked this all the time. People are always just afraid they're gonna miss something. Spoiler alert, you probably are gonna miss something. You probably will have to make an emergency order for something that you're short on or was wrong. But anyway, today I'm gonna take you along for the ride of picking the parts for that build to hopefully kind of give you guys some insight on how I choose my parts. The Air 903 Max Mid-Tower case from Montech features a 51% porosity ventilation rate, pre-installed HP 140mm ARGB fans, and 21 built-in RGB modes for a premium feel without the premium price. Not interested in RGB? Then the Air 903 base is just for you with its clean aesthetic and incredible component support at a price that won't have you crying. To see the full list of Air 903 specs from Montech, follow the link in the description below. Okay, so for this, I'm gonna assume you have all the tools you need to work on it. I'm just getting the parts that are needed. So the main components in this loop are going to be, obviously we're gonna need a CPU cooler, a GPU cooler if you're including it. We're gonna need a radiator, pump, or in some cases pumps, distro plate, because that's what I'm using for this one. We also need reservoirs. I don't know if I spelled that right, I don't really care. Fans, fluid, fittings. Okay, so these are the main components that we need for this. Now for the CPU, I'm either doing 13th gen or 14th gen for this. Skunkworks has always been an Intel build. I've been using my 7950X3D for a while now, but I don't want to continue using it because it's just still been a problem when it comes to memory compatibility. GPU, I already have done. I'm gonna be reusing that. That's my Strix 4090 with the EK water blocks, vector block, whatever it's called on there. My CPU, I'm gonna need a CPU block for that. Radiator, it's gonna be interesting because I'm gonna have a 520 in the bottom, and I'm also gonna have a 280 in the bottom. So the 600 watts that my graphics card's able to cool is definitely gonna be generate, is gonna be able to be handled by, 800 millimeters of radiators. For the top rads, I know for a fact I'm gonna use a 480 for the CPU. I might also add a 360. I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna do that. That would go on the front. The pumps are probably gonna be a res combo. I usually use those in this build so I can get rid of reservoir on here. Distro plate is being provided by Singularity Computers. They're building it from a spec that they designed but never really came out with because of the fact that the company went out of business before they ever really started selling these. Fans, Lee and Lee, question mark. I've been using those a lot lately, but I do like the daisy chain ability of them. However, I am possibly considering going with the Corsair Link just for its simplicity of the single wire setup and daisy chaining. Fluid, there's a new fluid coming out. I think it's a graphene based fluid that I may use. Haven't decided yet. Fittings. So here's the thing with fittings. We know we're gonna need our compressions for the tube. I might go 16 millimeter on this one. I've never done a 16 millimeter build. Usually I use 14 or 13. 16 would look good in this build because they're so thick. However, 16 millimeter tubes have a bigger radius in their bend. However, it's a SM-A8, there's plenty of room. So we know we're gonna need we need our compressions, we need 90-degree fittings, we need 45-degree fittings, maybe, and then we're gonna need, we should not need any bulkheads actually, because the distro plate acts as the bulkhead, has fittings on the top and the bottom. So we got 90s, we got 45 extensions, question mark, and offsets, question mark. So these are the things, as long as I get this little template filled out, I know I'll have pretty much everything I need covered. So Performance PCs is where I get all my parts from. They're in Florida. They're one of our sponsors. They're a part sponsor. They don't advertise with us, but they definitely provide us support when it comes to parts and stuff. So let's start with the easy stuff, this CPU block. I know I'm gonna need a socket 1700. So I'm gonna go, sell! Anyway, sorry, they're having a big sale if you didn't notice. So let's see, water block CPU. Let's go ahead and I'm just gonna filter by EK water blocks because I do think they have some of the best aesthetic looking blocks. We have a few different options here. The thing is, if I knew what motherboard I was gonna go with, which I don't yet, I could consider getting a full cover block for the motherboard, which would also cool the VRMs. Like for instance, here's the EK Quantum Momentum ROG Maximus Z790 Extreme Special Edition. Not $819 for the water block. I remember when I could build a whole loop for $819. Holy shit. Anyway, as you can see on the backside though, this replaces the covers for the VRMs. So this is now gonna be touching VRMs and cooling the covers. ROG Maximus Z790. Do I have one of those? I'm still like mad at Asus, but they do make a good motherboard, and so it's hard for me not to like consider it. I have to check something real quick. I almost dropped it. Okay, so I had to run out here and see if I have the motherboard. I do have the motherboard, and I wanted to make sure it was all gonna line up. Check it out. The USB 3.0 next to each other and the 90 degree plug is a problem for most cases, but in this one, it lined up perfectly with the grommet. It's seated. Both USB 3.0s will fit right there. It's almost like it was meant for this case. Ah. Okay, so I guess I know what motherboard I'm using now. Let's go ahead and, geez, $819, that's insane. Okay, add to cart. All right, so let's go ahead and go radiators. The bottoms are gonna be pretty straightforward. Like I said, 520 and a 280. Okay, Jay is stupid, it's a 560. It's been a long time since I've had a case that could support one, okay? Oh, here's the EK Surface S560 black right here. This is a slim 560, perfect. The silver plate right there, if that for some reason bothered me, I could take it off and paint it, but I think I'm gonna go with the titanium fittings. And I just wish I could get that plate in a different color, but doesn't really matter, not gonna show. So I'm gonna go ahead and add one of these to the cart. They're in stock, right? Low stock, only 3 left. Hurry, act now. So I'm gonna just match it with the S280. And that's more for my OCD. I don't wanna have one fat rad and one thick rad down on the bottom. I just want them to be the same. Okay, so for the top, we need a 480. Now I'm gonna probably go performance on this instead of the slim because I wanna fill out that upper component. Like the upper radiator area and that whole upper chamber is very large. So if I went with a slim rad, it would look kind of silly. Now I don't wanna go with an X480, this big old fat guy. Okay, well, I guess I might just be going with this guy because the one I want shows that they're out of stock. See the Performance 480, no stock. And then they have the Slim, which I think will look funny unless I were to go push-pull, but I don't want to go push-pull. Guess I'm going big boy. Because here's the thing, if I was gonna do a 360 on the front, that means I would have to match it now with the big boy. And I don't want to do that because going with the thick rad plus adding, because here, the extreme is how thick? That is 58 millimeters thick. Now we have to add 25 millimeters to that minimum, depending on the fans that you go with. A lot of fans these days are 28 mil or 30 mil even. Okay, so here's the thing. I have 86 millimeters between where the rad will mount to the top of the case and the top of where the motherboard tray is. I have 81 millimeters of required space if I go with the fat rad and the fans. This is where people start to get hung up and caught up on things. If you have your mindset on something and it's out of stock. I haven't done 2 crossflows like this. I only used crossflow when I did the Loki Ghost S1 case and the top, because I needed to get a fitting to the other side, a tube to the other side, and I had no room for a tube, so I let the radiator be the tube. Yeah, you know what, we'll do that. We'll go black ice. I've had really good luck with black ice. Believe it or not, black ice rads are what I was using in the bottom previously for the 280. I had a 280 black ice rad down there. So I've got good experience with Hardware Labs. They make really good stuff. So I've got my full cover water block now. I've got all 3 rads figured out. I'm not going to go with the 560 on the front. I'll just have fresh air coming in through those fans, unobstructed to keep that top chamber nice and cool for that radiator on the top, which is more than enough to cool a single CPU in the loop, and that's it. Even if I was to overclock it and it's doing 350, 360 watts, this is clearly more than enough radiator for that. All right, so as our CPU, our GPU is the same block, I'm not changing it. Our radiators are covered. Pump res combo. One of the things I don't like about EK is they've went with this more of a round design, which then made it to where the fittings always came off at a weird angle. Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. The round body, even though they made it flat. So the issue is that this flat part didn't used to be there. It used to like be on the body. So they would always come out at an angle because it's round. So they've clearly made that flat spot right there. And we've got this mount here. But I'm really looking for something that's more of a square design. Okay, so this is a solid contender here. The Ice Betcher. The acetal and glass. Dude, the Optimus stuff looks so good, but it's always like out of stock. So this is the Bits Power Cuboid one. I have one of these. The problem is it's only 150 millimeters tall. I ran this in the 925 build when I still had the air-cooled 3090 in there. I think I'm gonna take a chance on the Alpha Cools. Not a fan of it being their own VPP pump, which has been known to have problems. I might switch it out with a different pump. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the 14 millimeter tubing because I think I'm gonna use the PMMA from Corsair as well. Even though it's just Corsair branded, it's just PMMA. Because I like the way the black tubing looks. And I think I'm gonna go with the black tubing up in the upper component with all the other black stuff. Oh, this would look so good too. EK sells a satin metal 16 millimeter tube. You know what though, I'm just gonna stick with the 14 millimeter PMMA that I already have in black, and I'll just get more in frosted clear if I decide to go that route. I honestly think I'm just gonna go with black up there with silver fittings, the titanium fittings I'm using on my 925 now. One of the things I don't like about my 925 that I kind of discovered later on is I don't like the way the frosted fittings look going into the titanium fittings. They look good going into black fittings, but I'm not doing black fittings on this build because I want to contrast all the black up there already with the titanium fittings. So I'm gonna stick with the matte black PMMA that I already have in 14 mil. So I'll be reusing all of those compressions that are on that build already, but I'm gonna have to order more because, again, dual loops here. So I'm going to go ahead and just find more of those particular fittings. So I kind of want to try some of these. They're $31 a piece though. These are the EK Quantum Torque Double Rotary Offset 28. And now they have different offsets. So 28 is how many millimeters off it is from, so from this center point to that center point is 28 millimeters. I don't, see the thing is like when it comes to 90 degrees and stuff like that, I tend to just sort of get like 10 of each one. And I always buy more than I need because I don't really know what I need. And that's the frustrating part, is you think you know what you need and then you don't. Like their fitting costs are fairly reasonable, $12.50 essentially for the 90 degree rotary in satin. I just why the other fitting being $31. I'm like, holy cow. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab 10 of these. Like I said, that's $124 for one. You know, I feel like I have both single-handedly helped the water cooling industry, and I've also single-handedly hurt the water cooling industry, as I also continue to point out, like, these prices, good Lord. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm only gonna do 5 of the 45s. I tend to not need 45s as much as 90s. I know for a fact I'm gonna need on the bottom, because the rads are vertical in the bottom, the 280 and the 520. So I'm gonna need a 90 on each one of those rads. So that's 4 right there. Right? And I know I'm gonna probably need 90s coming off the upper rad. I'm gonna need 90s coming off the distro plates. So I might need more than 10. There's so much vertical, horizontal stuff happening with parallel tube runs that 90s are gonna be really important with this. All right, so fittings. I'm just gonna do this. Actually, no, I don't have any offsets yet. I need some offsets. Extensions, I don't have extensions on there yet. I have offsets. I remember I needed a couple more in my last build. I'll just grab a couple of those, and then I think that will be the end of our setup here. So it's these guys right here, the rotary torque offset. These come in very handy. And they're not as expensive. They're half the price of those other ones I showed at the beginning. Just gonna grab 4 of those. Okay, again, $900 of it is this monoblock. That's a ridiculous price, but it's like it was, the motherboard itself is $1,000, right? So now we're talking almost $2,000 motherboard. That's ridiculous. But the point of Skunkworks, and so many people have always agreed, is that it's about being overkill. It was always an overkill build on purpose, and I'm going to continue that. And since I can't go SLI, I might as well go crazy with the loop. So we've got our monoblock for our CPU/motherboard. We've got our lower 560. We've got our lower 280. We've got our upper 480. We've got 2 of the AlphaCool Ice Betcher Auroras D5 acetals. They're glass tubes. That's what's awesome. They won't discolor. The glass is gonna be so nice. It won't change color on me or get cloudy or anything. I've got 15 of the rotaries. 5 of the 45s, 2 more packs of the HDCs, extension rotaries. All right, there's no bending tubes in here. There's no internal cord for bending on this. There's no bending guides or tools because I already have all that stuff. So you see how it could get out of hand pretty quickly. So with extra fee, insurance amount, signature confirmation amount, they're probably requiring it because of the price of the package, to be honest. $2,129 for this loop. Look, sponsored or not, I'm still very aware of the pricing, and it hurts a little bit, to be honest, but okay. If I wanted to be more ridiculous, I'd be changing my water block to an active backplate one. I've already installed one of those on my friend's build, and it didn't make a huge difference, so I really don't want to take my block apart, although I probably will take my block apart and check the thermal paste, because my GPU's been getting warmer than I want it to lately, and I don't know why that is. So I think my thermal paste might have squished out. I'll be checking that whenever I move these components over. The only thing I'll be waiting on to start this build at this point is going to be the distro plate from Singularity Computers, and they're sending me 2 different types. That way I can choose the one that fits the build best. And if I need to move a fitting, I now know how to drill and tap one of those. So, all right. Thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, Techtoberfest, showing you kind of how I do some of my thought process on these loops. I tend to err on the side of caution of ordering more fittings than I think I would need, because it's bitten me enough in the past where I'm only 1 or 2 short. As you can see, that's not cost effective that way, but water cooling as a whole is not necessarily cost effective. So I think it's more of a niche thing, an enthusiast thing, where someone might be willing to spend, you know, an extra $100 on fittings that they might need just in case. Not to mention, you never know if one could potentially be defective or have a bad O-ring or something, and then you're caught waiting on one fitting. So having some extra is not a bad thing, as long as your budget can support it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope this video has helped you in some way, and we'll see you guys in the next Techtoberfest video.